various subcommittees to handle different aspects of the process of the transfer of power. The second meeting of the transition team that was formed after the 7th December polls was to hand over its notes and establish specific committees for smooth transition. Representative of President John Mahama, Mr. Julius Debra, said almost all handing over notes are ready.
From the both sides of the divide have agreed in principle that we have to try as much as possible for this to be one of the smoothest transitions that we've ever experienced. We're doing that with as much transparency as possible and as much openness to each other. Now, one of the main reasons why we are here today is to establish the various committees as required by the law, and then to also agree amongst ourselves other subcommittees that we think will be very relevant as far as the transition is concerned. As we speak now, we have almost all the handing over notes ready.
Mr. Yaosafo Mafu from the incoming team said work begins when all the necessary documents are ready.
We have heard from the grapevine a few things which have become our concern, talking about the incoming government team, the transition team. For instance, we have heard about ongoing recruitment into the security services now, which we hope is not true. We've heard of conversion of temporary staff, of political assistants, and some of the staff we took on into permanent public servants. We've heard of award of new contracts after the election results are announced on the 9th of December. We've heard of procurement of sales and national access also after the results. We do not want to believe that these allegations are true. We need to be cautious, we need to be transparent, we need to be candid, and we need to be factual. We are therefore appealing to our colleagues that within this period, if there's anything that needs to be done, consultation have to be brought on board.
Both teams were positive of a healthy cooperation to ensure smooth transition of power.
Parliament is expected to resume sitting on Tuesday, 20th December 2016 to complete the remaining business of the 6th Parliament. A statement by the Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Doa Jahu, says the main issues to be considered will be those that deal directly with the constitutional provision regarding the end of the life of Parliament and its subsequent dissolution. In fulfillment of Article 67 of the Constitution, the President of the Republic will present the State of the Nation address to Parliament on Thursday, December 22nd. The MPs went on recess in November to participate in the general elections.
Now, the director of the African Center for Parliamentary Affairs, Dr. Rashid Draman, has commended the Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Eduardo Ajaho, for being a fair arbiter of the state parliament. In an interview with Radio Ghana's Gloria Anderson, Dr. Draman said Mr. Ajaho had firm control and was always fair, irrespective of political leaning.
In the build-up to the elections, various stakeholders raised concerns about the effect of vigilante groups on the December 7 polls. Rigorous education and calls to disband such groups yielded positive results. Elections are over and parts of the country have already witnessed pockets of violence. The Ghana Police Service is therefore calling for a halt to the violence and is reminding the political parties that the Adan communique is still binding.
Ghana's democracy has proved to be on a firm footing following the success of the just-ended December 7 polls. The peace and serene nature which characterized the polls were a credit to the hard work of the security agencies and the contingency plan mapped out for the elections. The long winding queues associated with Ghana's elections were missing, but rather there was enough visibility of security personnel around the country, which one could possibly allude to the fact that prevented any group from causing mayhem. With figures of flashpoint numbering over 3,000 identified by both the police and the Electoral Commission, it became relevant when the police deployed about 2,000 security personnel across the country to augment the security details on the grounds, a move which fell in place.
This was one election that was most peaceful because we barely experienced any incidents. Unlike what we used to do in the past where we deployed 24 hours or so to elections, which we also did this time. In addition to that kind of deployment, we did additional deployments to certain very critical areas which we thought was going to create problems. For instance, right from Elubo to Sampa, to Hamile, to Paga, to all these places, Hohwe, Ho, and Aplau, we deployed special teams there because we knew that certain problems will arise as a result of certain pronouncement by certain individuals and groups, and therefore we deployed special teams there just to ensure that there was peace in these areas, and it worked for us.
Following the Adan communique, it became evident that political parties could no longer rely on or use such vigilante groups. Barely a week after the polls, some parts of the country have experienced disturbances with attacks on individuals and national assets.
Why should certain individuals begin to take the laws into their own hands? For the police, these are criminals. We don't consider them as members of a political party. We believe that they are criminals that are masquerading as political party members, and therefore any criminal could wear any party color and perpetrate any kind of violence. So we are going after them, and when we get them, we'll deal with them as criminals, not as party members.
At the time of our visit to the Ashaiman Tematol booth in contention, things were back to normalcy, but the workers say they live in fear. One would have thought that following the attack a few days ago, security would have been tightened, but just 2 additional policemen have been deployed to protect the toll booth. At the police headquarters, 2 special teams have been put in place to deal with any post-electoral violence. While the evening team were warming up to hit the road, the morning team had returned from their patrol without any negative report.
Where's team 1? Sir. You are going Tesinungwa and the area. These people are not just going to be dealing with armed robberies and other things. Of course, should it happen around them, they will respond to it. We have other teams that will be responding to armed robberies and other crimes and cases. But these people specifically are strategically positioned for this evening and the whole night to respond to politically inspired violence and other things that have been happening in the past few days. Soon after the election, we put together this team. So if you want to know what our preparation has been, this is part of it.
For now, the police says it will continue to intensify its operations in a bid to nip the situation in the bud. The Ghana Police Service has also commended all stakeholders and the Ghanaian populace for collaborating with them to ensure a smooth and peaceful elections. They are therefore appealing to the public to continue their support in order not to disturb the peace in the country.
The Director of Public Affairs of the Ghana Police, Superintendent Cephas Arthur, has told GBC24 of the determination of the police to maintain peace and security in the country. In Accra on Tuesday, Superintendent Cephas Arthur told Fanny Nana Esamoah that the police have rolled out measures to ensure safety in the country.
In connection with the FIAPRE case, the 2 booths arson, Amos Asare alias Anointing, also in connection with some supporters of a political party that was attacked also in Brown Hafu. Then Mark Tete, the ringleader and an assemblyman who led a group of some miscreants to bear the Fia Pretubut. And then Al Hassan Ganamati Atta, also suspected to be behind the death of somebody in Dunkanofin. Yes, so some arrests have been made, and we are following up on the cases and the incidents. We believe that before long, some more people will be roped in so that they are made to face the law. Gambians
voted and a winner was declared. The loser conceded but later rejected the results. The loser, incumbent President Yahya Jammeh, is now seeking to have the election overturned in court. Will this dispute create a constitutional crisis in the West African nation? We will now go to the Gambia to speak to a journalist, Sene M.K. Marina, on the issue. Hello, Mr. Sene. Okay, we'll bring you this report in our subsequent bulletin. In other stories, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari on Wednesday presented a record budget of $23.97 billion for 2017 to lawmakers in Abuja. The budget, which is an increase of 20.4% over the 2016 figures, is expected to focus on massive infrastructural development. The budget was based on an exchange rate of 305 naira to the dollar and a projected oil output of 2.2 million barrels per day at an assumed price of $42.5 per barrel. We go back to our earlier story where Gambians voted and a winner was declared. The loser conceded but later rejected the results. The loser, incumbent President Yahya Jammeh, is now seeking to have the election overturned in court. Will this dispute create a constitutional crisis in the West African nation? We will, I think Mr. Sani is back on the line, so we will go to him and find out more about the issue. Hello, Mr. Sani. Hello, good evening, Mr. Sani. Hello, Mr. Sani. I think we are having problems with the line, so we will go back to him again. You're back shortly after the break.
Back. Now we take the Gambian interview. Hello, Sani. Good evening. Hello, Sani. Good evening. If you can hear me, one of the issues that came up during a meeting between Yahya Jammeh and regional leaders was Mr. Jammeh's quest to at least settle for power sharing. How feasible is this demand by Mr. Jammeh, Sani? Well, we seem to be having some challenges here. Mr. Sani is having difficulty hearing us, but let me repeat the question again and see if he can hear me this time. And I was saying that one of the issues that came up during a meeting between Mr. Yahya Jammeh and regional leaders was Mr. Jammeh's quest to at least settle for power sharing. So I was trying to find out how feasible is this demand by Mr. Jammeh. Well, we seem to be having some challenges here. We take a quick break here. We'll be back shortly with more news for you. Okay, we take a break to make way for business news. Do stay.
Hello again, still news alive on GBC24. We talk business. My name is Maurice Ogbete. Now, for the second time in a row, the Ghana Stock Exchange is set to end the year in negative territory. The managing director of the Accra Bears, Kofi Yamoa, attributed the sluggish performance to a difficult macroeconomic environment. Given a slight reduction in interest rates, Mr. Yamwa remains optimistic the market will pick up in 2017. The second consecutive year that the performance of the stock market has been in the negative territory. In 2015, the Accra Bears closed the year with a negative growth of 25.6% in dollar terms. The exchange in cedi terms for the same period also posted a negative 11.77% for investors. The financial stock index also recorded negative 14% last year. The sluggish performance was attributed to the poor economic fundamentals, driven largely by unstable currency, high inflation and interest rates, as well as the power outage that hit the manufacturing sector hard. The managing director of the Ghana Stock Exchange, Kofi Yamwa, is worried that 2016 will end in the same fashion.
Admittedly, 2016 has been very difficult on many fronts, especially for the equity market, because as we speak, the equity market is down by about 21% compared to negative 11% thereabout last year. In terms of the financial stock index, that is the index for the financial institutions, banks and insurance companies, we are even down much more, 28% negative, as against about 14% negative last year. So in totality, you see that 2015 and 2016 have all been negative territory for us, and that is not good enough.
He is, however, optimistic 2017 will be a better year as inflation and interest rates are expected to take a downward trend.
We expect to see a better 2017 going forward on the back of the fact that should interest rate continue to trend downwards, should inflation continue to trend downwards, and we are able to maintain very much good stability as far as the foreign exchange front is concerned, then I expect the companies that have been afflicted in this way to perform better going into the future. And then we can see some of these investors coming back to the equity market.
The Ghana Stock Exchange in 2010 put up a sterling performance in dollar terms and was ranked the second best performing market in Africa and among the top 5 in the world. Still in business, inflation is now at 15.5%. After hitting 19.2% in March and 15.8% in October, the figure dipped by 0.3% to close November at 15.5%. The acting government statistician, Mr. Bawadie, described the figure as the lowest in the past 14 months, attributing it to the base drift effect and movement in the non-food inflation rate.
The inflation rate for November 2015 stood at 17.6%. It increased by 1.1% in December, closing the year at 17.7%. The beginning of 2016 saw inflation rate increasing by 4.6%, pushing it to 19%, but it decreased to 18.5% in February. It, however, recorded one of its highest rate at 19.2% in March 2016. It further dropped to 16.7% in July, giving indications the prices are dropping at a slower rate. But the month of September saw a marginal increase from 16.7% to 17.2%. Prices, however, slowed in October, dropping 1.4% to 15.8%. And November has seen a further decline of 0.3% to 15.5%. The acting government statistician, Mr. Bawadie, attributed the drop to movements in the non-food basket.
What is also responsible for this low inflation or lower inflation in November is attributable to the non-food group, which is responsible basically for the fall in the November inflation. Realize that the non-food inflation rate fell by a 0.7 percentage point from 19.4% in October to 18.7% in November. And generally, this is the main cause of the fall in the inflation that we are observing.
The rate of imports also dropped in the month under review, and Mr. Bawadie said this is as a result of high interest and depreciation of the cedi to the US dollar. At the regional level, Ashanti and the Greater Accra regions recorded inflation rate higher than the national average of 15.5%.
So inflation is at 15.5%. The dollar is trading at 4 cedis 2 pesos, the pound at 5 cedis 21 pesos, and the euro at 4 cedis 36 pesos. We go to the international commodities market, where a barrel of oil is selling at $52.18 and an ounce of gold at $1,161 and a ton of cocoa at $2,280. I'll do for business.
Down to some more local stories. The president-elect Nana Akufo-Addo has been to the Menchia Palace in Kumasi to thank the Asante-Hene Otumfuo Osei for his support and blessing during the campaign that has brought him to power. It is Nana Akufo-Addo's first official travel outside Accra since being officially declared winner of the December 7 presidential election.
A few minutes before the arrival of the president-elect Nana Akufo-Addo, a crowd of enthusiastic MPP supporters had thronged the precinct of the Menchia Palace, singing and dancing and blowing vuvuzelas. Security men had a hectic time controlling the crowd. The crowd went wild when Nana Akufo-Addo arrived. Nana Addo was accompanied by party stalwarts and the vice president in waiting, Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia. They were dressed in the traditional mourning color of the Ashantis. This was to match the occasion of Ukudai, one of the sacred days on the Akan calendar. The dress code was also in solidarity with Otumfuo Osei, who is still mourning the passing of his mother and Asante-Hema Nana Efia-Kobi-Sewa Ampem, whose burial and funeral arrangement have been slated for late January. Also at the Menchia Palace was the new president of the National House of Chiefs, Togbe Apede, who is also the Agbogbemefia of the Asogli State, and some chiefs and queen mothers from the Volta region. Togbe Apede was at the Menchia Palace to thank Otumfuo Osei for his personal support when he, Togbe Apede, was seeking the presidency of the National House of Chiefs, which he eventually won last month. Togbe Apede stressed that peace and unity in the Ashanti and Volta regions would automatically guarantee national peace. He therefore promised to work closely with Asante-Hene and other chiefs to restore dignity and reverence to the chieftaincy institution.
I'm committed to working with you to ensure that we support the government of the day to bring development to our country. And indeed, to make Ghana more relevant in the affairs of Africa and the entire black race.
The health news is up next.
In health news, stress is primarily the body's physical response to a disturbing situation that causes a number of reactions. This condition can affect a person's mental and physical well-being. GBC24 spoke to a clinical psychologist at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, Mr. Notedua, and he cautions that recurrent stress can be harmful.
Generally, stress is normal and part of human life. One can experience positive or negative forms of stress emanating from the body, the environment, or from one's thoughts. Scientists say some stresses can get one going. Researchers are also of the view that life will be boring and probably pointless without stress. Stress occurs when one feels pressured and overwhelmed. At that moment, one wonders whether he or she can really cope with the situation. Sources of stress in an environment are noise, unpleasant people, speeding cars, or even going out on a first date. When one is stressed up, blood diverts to the muscles. This disrupts digestion and releases hormones such as adrenaline, cortisol, and norepinephrine, which can lead to a rise in sugar and blood pressure levels, a decrease in libido, resulting in heightened alertness, which leads to one's inability to sleep. As a result, this can undermine both mental and physical health.
When we have the stress that is adequate enough to get us to act, we say that stress is good stress. When stress is at a level where you can do the right thing and you are mobilized to do the right thing, we say that stress is good stress. We call it eustress. But when stress is so high that it actually compromises your performance or your ability to get things done, then that is bad stress. All right? And when stress is too low also, then people are apathetic. They don't do what they are supposed to do.
The way one responds to challenges may also be a type of stress. A clinical psychologist of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, Mr. Notedua, advised the public to minimize the use of mobile phones, especially during working hours, as that could help reduce daily stress.
A lot of stress is internally or personally generated. For example, you decide you must drive the latest car, or wear designer perfume, or have Brazilian hair. Somebody doesn't care about that. They don't have your stress. Okay, so there are things you can modify, and that actually has an impact on your stress load and the things you are adjusting to. Stress management is much more than calming down. It involves eating well, it involves time management. Stress is related to health. Okay, when you are under stress, your body pumps certain hormones and certain body chemicals into the system. They are there for a purpose, and they are there for short durations. Okay, so they come in, they solve the problem, they go out. When you are under persistent chronic stress, these chemicals, which are very strong, stay in your blood for longer, and then they start to damage certain body systems. So there's a strong relationship between stress and health.
Individuals are encouraged to take note of things around them that stress them up. This will enable them to beat stress before stress beats them.
And that was health news. We'll be back shortly with international news. Please do stay with us.
know you there. If you come start it, people they laugh you. You go make them, people want to see you. Brother, they can see you.
Yeah, remember 24th night, GBC, Ewo Joy Gardens, Animhua, Sangawe Watulaga, Kai.
Yeah, speed up. This is your favorite boy, Ephraim. You can still call me Ephraim BTA. We go by anything you did do, you for do, I'm well, Kevin. Yo, you know something? Coming this 24th of December, Christmas night. Charlie, we are chilling inside Zoe Gardens in front of GBC. I don't know. Come, I'm going to be here live and color with the live band. You know how we do? We rock up the whole place. Come. Boom.
PM. Should I do Panka? Now, what up, GH people? It's your boy Panka. Body is the GBC Xmas Village Bash happening inside Zoe Gardens at the forecourt of GBC. Meet me there. I don't see ya. We are me hajiya. Meyo alaji. Se open here me hajiya. Meyo alaji. Panka on me, body. Near lady, come way that thing, African shorty, come do that thing. I say, farmer, will you marry me? I cross your train, minya sika, my wow, Charlie December, ebe ye butu. Ewa GBC anymore. Zoe Gardens, Charlie wa madam wa ye brand same, brand be share no be madam so abiam na sell. It's all about Christmas jam. Ebe ye the rough brand sell. Shuno o tumani na wo se kwa.
Media maka se we na wado ye do so ma wo ma wai baby awudi ya bedri die Ghana fo yeah that was. Hello lovely people of Ghana, my name is Ohineba Clement. Meet me on the 25th GBC Zoe Gardens. It's gonna be powerful. It's all about worship. Meeting the Ohineba Clement share me our GBC Zoe Gardens e be powerful brana yen senga memrane sen krenche kan chere nyame osi apreku tintrin kuja medu okukura dro jampon tramre won samra ne nyumunye sadia wo kire yen ye be na sada. Meet me there and you're gonna be blessed.
Hello, good evening. In Arena of Sports, the Ghana Football Association President Kwesi Nyantichi has explained the rationale behind the signing of a strategic partnership agreement with Star Times. This is for all media rights of the Ghana Premier League, the National Division 1 League, the FA Cup, the Ghana Women's League, and the Ghana Juvenile League for the next 10 years. The deal is worth more than $17 million.
Before we left, the executive committee had approved all the terms, including the tenure of the contract for 5 years. When we got to China, the owner of the company, who led the Chinese negotiation, requested that they wanted a 10-year contract and offered new terms. In fact, he even asked for 12 years and offered new terms, including an enhanced value, more pitches. The original contract was 5 years with 2 pitches, and it was graduated like this: $1,250,000 for the first 3 years, and then $1,800,000 for the next 2 years. Then we went to China, and new terms were presented: $1,250,000 for the first 3 years, $1,800,000 for the next 3 years, and $2,200,000 for the next 4 years. And then instead of 2 pitches, they offered to give 10 pitches. And in addition to that, the OB van was a new thing. So quickly we did a memo there and sent it back to executive committee that these are the new things. We cannot sign this contract unless you approve, because the mandate you gave us has changed. The time was short. It was just like a day or two. So we pleaded with the executive committee that please give your approval or withdraw it. Then we come back to Accra without the executive committee approved it, and then we.
And the English Premiership has now missed the chance to go top of the league table as Everton came from behind to secure a 2-1 victory at the Vitality Stadium. That's all for sports. Up next is entertainment.
Good evening. Time for some art news. My name is Valerie Danso. Disney fairy tale Cinderella has been adapted into a Ghanaian setting with the name Kukwa. Kukwa is an adaptation by Ghanaian author, poet and playwright Hajara Daniel. The play will be staged on Sunday, 18 December at the Du Bois Center here in Accra. Hajara Daniel started writing when she was as little as 5. She has been writing professionally for 20 years. Coffee Growing Pains and Passage of Love are some of the books she has written. Tell us how difficult or easy it is to, come out when it comes to being an author.
It's difficult in terms of getting a good publisher and actually giving them your work, because they all like to put interpretation on what they want to publish, but I always want it to be truly mine and not a publisher's work. So I've got around that by publishing my own books.
So tell us, what inspired you to write Kukwa?
My mother. She's been telling me stories. She and my grandmother have been telling me stories ever since I was young. I think that's probably why I ended up being an author, because singing to me, telling me fairy tales, folk tales, everything. So I just thought when I come here, my first play will be dedicated to her.
So what has been your greatest difficulty, putting this play together?
Well, this is not so much of a difficulty as compared. I've always said that one of my greatest project, the difficulty I had in the production has got to do with Dr. Giska Gambila's play, The Madman of Bolga.
Yes.
It was very voluminous, like William Shakespeare's play. We had to take like 2 weeks to finish everything. But this one is one act. It's an act play. And a one act play. And so one act play. And then the good thing is it's not just me. I have everyone contributing. So I said, like, what song can we use here? I said, oh, we can use this song. So it's a teamwork.
When are we expecting to watch Kukwa live?
You are going to watch Kukwa on the 18th.
This Sunday.
This coming Sunday. At the Du Bois Memorial Center. Please, Du Bois is beginning to become a hub for theater.
Which is good.
Yes, that's what we need to do. We don't have to stay at one place and say it's supposed to be here. We need to open up. We have to activate the inactive centers. So Du Bois is just is sharing a street with U.S. Embassy. And the good thing about this thing, thanks to the executive producer of the play, it's free.
Oh wow!
So let's come together as one people.
I decided my first play in Ghana will be free for everyone.
It's going to be free.
Okay.
We're going to have. It's not going to be just this one. We're going to have other productions coming up.
Time now for a roundup of trending entertainment news.
Ghana 2015 is the
Miss Ghana 2015 Kemavo is currently in the USA, where she's participating in the Miss World pageant. Delali has participated in all the mini competitions such as the fashion show, fitness, cooking competition, talent show, and beauty with a purpose in the roundup to the grand finale. The final of Miss World comes off on December 18 at the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center in National Harbor, Maryland, USA.
Now, before we go look again at the closing headlines, The transition team has started its briefing and handing over to the incoming administration. At their second meeting in Accra, a representative of the incoming team, Mr. Yao Osafo Mafo, expressed concern over rumors of recent recruitment into the security services, awarding of new contracts and regularization of the appointment of temporary staff, among others. Mr. Osafo Mafo says both teams must consult properly for a smooth and transparent process.
The President-elect Nana Akufo-Addo has been to the Mensa Palace in Kumasi to thank the Asante Otumfuo Osei-Tutu for his support and blessing during the campaign that has brought him to power.
And this is where we draw the curtain on News Hour. Thank you so much for your time. We'll be back at 10:30.
Have a good evening.